incentive scheme of GSP Plus, which is vital for country's economy and country's economy and employment market. Our leaders, Chairman Pakistan People's Party, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, has always emphasized on giving priority to the promotion and protection of human rights in Sindh. Keeping this into Constitution, the Sindh Assembly has enacted a number of pro-human rights laws extending fundamental rights to the vulnerable and most marginalized sections of the society, such as women, agriculture workers, bonded laborers, children, and informal workers. As you know, the European Union granted GSP Plus status to Pakistan in January 2014, and its foundation was led by President Asif Ali Zardari. Pakistan exports to the European Union increased from 4.53 billion euros in 2013 to 7.49 billion euros in 2019, registering an increase of 65%. However, GSP Plus instrument is expiring in 2023, and now instrument will be introduced by the European Union, for which government of Pakistan will have to reapply. This warrants devising a creative strategy by the government of Pakistan and civil society so that Pakistan could continue benefiting trade benefits beyond 2023. It is pertinent to mention that Human Rights Department has prepared a draft human rights policy with an aim to ensure compliance with human rights obligation in liaison with stakeholder departments. The Chief Minister of Sindh, Syed Murad Ali Shah, has always been very supportive to the human rights cause. He has approved a special grant of 50 million rupees to Human Rights Department to provide legal aid to the vulnerable groups in Sindh. In the end, I would like to say that I hope that this conference will create informed discussions and will come up with recommendations and action-oriented strategies to improve human rights situation in the province and to effectively meet international human rights reporting obligations. Once again, thank you for joining us in gracing this event. Thank you.
Right now, without going and delving deep into what we are doing, there's some of the key initiatives which we want to highlight for this meeting. First of all, the human rights policy draft. It has been prepared and submitted to the Cabinet Committee for its approval. Then there's an ADP scheme titled as Human Rights Information Management System, which seeks to create a digital platform and mostly work as a referral system where we can do some information sharing, not only regarding the complaints that is, usually considered to be the mandate of this department, but it's also about the reports sharing, the actions, or even about the recommendations, and just to bring some visibility to the general public about the work that is being done in the domain of the human rights. Another initiative which is guided by our special assistant under the social sector grant is that of extending legal aid to the poor, needy, and the aggrieved sections of the society. For this, we are working closely with the Human Rights Commission and the other civil society to make it a success, and hopefully we'll by the end of this year we'll able to show some milestones achieved in this regard as well. Another thing on the level of awareness raising and capacity building we did, that was the week-long celebration held by the Human Rights Department, engaged in different activities, walks, awareness, seminars, most of all holding essays and speeches. A proposal for strengthening of the treaty implementation cell has already been floated, and we are working on it. Another proposal in the pipeline is that of restructuring our Human Rights Directorate, because with the given number of roles and functions under the digital platform, we need to strengthen that directorate as well. About the institutional arrangement that we have right now, there is a provincial task force on human rights. Provincial task force is mainly looking after the implementation of the human rights a National Action Plan for Human Rights. We have a Provincial Vigilance Committee that monitors the violations of human rights issues. And then we are on the behest of the Ministry of Human Rights in the process of forming the district level committees. So if we come to the legislative framework that we have at present, we can just divide it into these broad areas of women rights, access to justice, minorities' rights, persons with disabilities, child rights, and along with our institutional framework, that is the policy framework that we have. So under women rights, I'll just quickly, run through these slides. The only thing worth noticing is that we have a thin commission on the Status of Women Act. On the child rights, we have the Child Protection Authority. Persons with disabilities, it's a long list of legislation. And on access to justice institutional framework again. Now, with this, I'll come to the generalized scheme of preferences. I'm sure the experts sitting here, they know more on the subject that I do. But just to warm you up and give you some of the key ideas about the theme is that GSP Plus remains to be a key policy instrument regarding trade and development. Generalized, it was instituted in 1971 when under the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, all the developed countries were asked to kind of integrate the developing countries into the world economy. And from this, the idea of GSP Plus was born. The idea kind of offers import and quota-free entry into the EU market of the goods and supplies from the developing countries. And the main key thing for its ongoing and implementation are the 27 international treaties that largely relate to the human rights, labor rights, environment protection, and governance issues. If we comply with those, the EU body comes, reviews our progress, and kind of extends that status. Two key areas of the GSP Plus are its monitoring. Monitoring requires the reporting monitoring for which a treaty implementation cell keeps on writing to the government offices to give us a report as per the matrix given. And there's a report, implementation of GSP publishes its reports every 2 years about the status of implementation of those 27 conventions. GSP Plus in Pakistan, if we come in this scenario of our own country, it was granted to Pakistan in January 2014. As already explained, its grants, 78% of Pakistan exports rely on this preferential agreement. The status, the point of holding this conference at this juncture is, it is set to expire on 31st December 2023, and even our extension till 23 relies on to our fourth performance report for 2021, and the new GSP Plus is going to commence from the January 2024, for which we are gearing up to reapply and adhere ourselves to the new regulations. So with this, I won't take much time and leave this for the audience to come up with more recommendations in the exhaustive sessions that we have planned for today. Thank you.
डिटेल में खास तौर पे सिंध के अंदर जो काम हुआ है
In practice to come every 2 weeks to Karachi, although I would like to have this very much. Honorable Minister, Honorable Secretary, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of employers, government, everybody who is here, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me congratulate the Human Rights Department of the Government of Sindh to organize today's conference. I feel honored to be here. It's a crucial time in the international scene, but it's also a crucial time in Pakistan to talk about this subject, to talk about human rights, to talk about trade and how it is interlinked. Well, human rights are and will remain a central part of the European Union's policy, whether inside the Union, where we always and also have some issues, or in our foreign policy. The political wish to promote and protect human rights as part of our fundamental values is even growing in light of the threat they are suddenly exposed to by the Russian Federation in our immediate neighborhood. Human rights have been part of our foreign policy around the globe for a long time, mainly through political dialogue, debate with civil society organizations, and together with partner countries, economic actors, we work together on the respect and implementation of human rights and the respective conventions. For us, this is the precondition for freedom, peace, and prosperity. I'm glad to say that we have been working with Pakistan for many years already on human rights. And you explained earlier when the GSP Plus scheme came into life in 2014 and what was already achieved at that point in time. Many things have been achieved. We looked at your record, Secretary, just 2 minutes ago. And for me, let me be very clear, one of the most important achievements in the recent past is the de facto moratorium as regards the death penalty. The implementation of many common objectives still need to be discussed, and the conference today is an ideal forum to do so. In recent months, I have heard voices saying human rights in Pakistan should be seen in the context of traditions, history, culture, above all in rural areas. I want to be very clear here. Human rights are indivisible. They are not interpretable. They are not adaptable or adjustable. We cannot choose and pick. The right of a boy or a girl not to be subject to child labor is the same whether in a rural area or in the middle of a city. The right of a girl to access of school and higher education is the same everywhere. As it was said, since 2014, Pakistan benefits from the preferential trade under GSP+. Well, actually, I should say Pakistan and the EU benefit from the GSP+ regime. This regime is a very efficient tool to facilitate and increase trade with Pakistan, and that's what we want. It provides incentives for Pakistani producers, factory owners, employers and traders to work together with their European partners. It allows the EU, and therefore I was saying we are also benefiting, to export high quality standards of goods, which is in the ultimate benefit of consumers also in Pakistan. And, perhaps more importantly, it increases the competitiveness of Pakistani products in third country, beyond the EU. That is what owners of textile factories have recently confirmed to me just 2 weeks ago when we were here. By linking EU unilateral trade concessions and preferences to achievements by Pakistan in the areas of human rights, labor law, environment, in the future also in the combat of climate change, and to good governance, we have put forward many challenges to Pakistan. Fully aware that the implementation of not every of the 27 conventions and agreements in the current regime could be achieved overnight, we have committed as EU ourselves to working together with all levels of the state, CSOs, employers, trade unions, and as we see today, also the provinces. And we are glad that Pakistan is ready to take over and implement these obligations. This is not least a very positive signal that Pakistan remains committed to international law. It remains committed to international rules-based order, which is so much under risk these days. To only show a small part of our past cooperation on human rights, as one of the results of our Hukuk-e-Pakistan project, training modules on human rights and international relevant conventions, agreements and standards have been included in the permanent curriculum of the Sindh Judicial Academy. This contributes to a better understanding by experts of what the conventions and agreements are about, their rationale, their intentions, and it contributes to good governance. As it was said by you, Secretary, the current regime in place will come to its end next year. We will analyze to which degree our requirements have been fulfilled so far by means of a monitoring mission. I've notified the Ministry of Foreign Affairs just on Friday that the mission of Brussels experts will arrive in Pakistan on 20 June and complete its work by the 1st of July. The findings of this mission, even if mostly of technical nature, and the overall result are not only relevant for the current GSP Plus regime. They are at least equally important for the discussions of Pakistan with the EU when Pakistan applies for the next GSP Plus as from 2014. Well, and the next regime and its conditions are currently discussed and prepared in our headquarters. As things stand today, and I'm very open and direct on this, obtaining GSP Plus status again will not be easier for Pakistan than in 2014. The European Union is changing. It's changing in light of the threats towards us directly, but also because of the growing lack of respect of international rules-based order. Our DNA is no longer the DNA of a body that mainly aims at bringing people together, that fosters international trade and supports fundamental rights. We have been perceived long time, I would add too long time, as a payer, but not as a player. The EU is strengthening, therefore, its work now also on security, defense, and similar areas. This goes together with the wish, not only by members of the European Parliament, but also by many of our member states and the European Commission, to be clearer on our objectives and red lines and less ready for compromise in our foreign policy, including our foreign trade policy. All of us, we may not like this, we may not find this justifiable, but we have to recognize this as a political reality. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the context within which the new GSP Plus regime is currently elaborated. You may know that the European Commission has already added 6 international conventions to the 27 mentioned earlier, which would be to look at and applicable for the new regime. The 6 conventions, to give you an idea, pertain to greater accessibility for people with physical disability, eradication of child labor, establishment of labor inspection systems, and tripartite consultations. A new point also is the respect of environmental safety. The Kyoto Protocol will be replaced by the Paris Agreement. Then, in its recent debates, the European Parliament is considering even 3 requirements more. 2 refer to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. 1 is the recognition of the competence of the UN Human Rights Council to consider complaints from individuals, and the other one is the objective to abolish the death penalty.
Excellency Mr. Thomas, Charge d'Affaires, European Union Delegation, Mr. Surinder, Noreen Bashir, Secretary Human Rights, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. We greatly value the European Union's GSP Plus scheme, which has resulted in significant increase of Pakistan's export to EU. And let me assure you that a government is committed to ensure compliance with obligations associated to the GSP Plus scheme, which are related to human and labor rights, environment and governance. History tells us that the Pakistan People's Party has huge contribution in realization of people's rights in the country. It has introduced a comprehensive framework for rights, mostly compliant with Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Constitution of Pakistan 1973.
Given the fact that most of the UN human rights treaties were ratified by the Pakistan during the PPP's government at the federal level, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 2008, Convention Against Torture and Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 2010, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2011, Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1990, and Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1996. PP's government has established a separate federal ministry for human rights in 2008. In the province of Sindh, PP government has established the Sindh Human Rights Commission. No such institution exists in other provinces of Pakistan. We've also established Sindh Commission on the Status of Women and Sindh Child Protection Authority. PP's provincial government is working alongside the trade unions to strengthen labor legislation aimed to effectively protect workers' rights. As a step ahead, Sindh has legally recognized the right of association of students and peasants. To create social dialogue among workers, employers and the Labour Department, tripartism among employers, employees and government has been developed. In this regard, Labour Department has notified industrial tripartite zonal committees in all industrial zones and provincial implementation tripartite committees. On behalf of the leadership of our party, I do commit that we will keep our struggle continue on the way to respect, protect and fulfill people's rights in Pakistan. Apart from this, I must say that the Pakistan People's Party, especially the Sindh government, is leading all the provinces, especially in the field of to protect the rights of the labor, women, minorities, the people with the disabilities, and the basic fundamental rights. And this is not because of some compulsion of the international agreements. I think under the Constitution of Pakistan is the responsibility of the state and the government